G'day, Vivian. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. Absolute pleasure having you on the show. You're a photographer and video maker that I've followed for quite some time, and I know we've chatted on and off on socials. Why don't we start with who Vivien Francis is and why is she a photographer?
Okay. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. On this video. I'm very excited to be here. So Grad, we did talk a lot over the years, and it's nice to finally put a face to a name. And so it's a big question. Who am I? Okay, I'll start with, I'm actually from Holland. I've moved over to England to pursue a career, more creative career.
Sure.
Holland is less creative overall, and England has more opportunity. So with my English and Dutch background, English father, Dutch mother, I was able to do that freely without any problems. And I found that being here in the UK, I actually was more focused on video. I've studied filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to art school, studied filmmaking, became a producer. But actually being here in the UK, the landscape here is so dramatically different from Holland, which Holland is very flat, as most people know.
Yeah.
Whereas here I found mountains, lakes, rivers with, beautiful trees and very old trees and old, it's the landscape here inspired me that much that I said one day, I can't just walk around with an old camera that I have. I need to upgrade. So I actually gave myself sort of the best camera at that time that was out there, which was the Nikon D850, which I love, and which is a beast, as most photographers know. And once I picked that up, what I could do with it just, blew my mind in terms of the ISO, in terms of the exposure, the f-stop, the lenses, everything started to just not quite skyrocket, but sort of it started to progress from there.
Yeah, sure.
And it was to a point where I thought, this is, I want more. And I went out there with my camera. I was living in Bournemouth, so very close to the beach.
Yep.
And going out on the sunrise or sunset shoot along the beach with the water and the long exposure, which I love, it's really made a big addition to my life and the person I am today because of how it made me feel, and mentally it could just make me feel happy and free, and capturing those moments. It's just, it's life-changing, that's sort of taking that direction in. And I think being here is what done that for me, because I couldn't not just sit back and look at this landscape. I had to capture it. Seeing Durdledor for the first time made me cry.
Wow.
It's the stone arch. It was just, I'd never seen anything like that in real life. Yeah, that sparked it for me, is the environment I was in. And then I started to get to know other photographers in the area. We started going shooting together. There's a whole community on Instagram with other photographers locally who go to the same places as you want to go. So you meet up with them. And no, this was all, not to bring it down on things, but before COVID, this was a lot more usual. It sort of stopped during COVID time. And it is coming back, but at the moment, because I've developed and I've moved to a different place, that's halted a bit, unfortunately. But It's definitely something I would recommend other people to do as well, in case they wanted to get into photography, is to meet up with other photographers, because that was, those were one of the most exciting times I've ever had. Go with photographers in the dark, trying to get somewhere at sunrise in the middle of nowhere. You're trying to find, do we have to pay for parking here? You're sort of half awake, half dreaming still. And, which lenses do you take? And it's cold out there, and it's, you're trying to figure out where to put the filter on in the dark, and all of a sudden the sun comes up and it's an epic sunrise. And the feeling you get is, euphoric almost.
Yeah.
So not to dwell too much off because it's such a big question you've asked, but in terms of who I am, that shaped who I am today by doing that and pursuing that. Even though I do work as a video producer, full time, photography is still my go-to when it comes to my creativity. So,
nice.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to dive in there. First off, you picked a really fantastic spot to plant yourself in the UK on the coast. That's just photography heaven.
Yes.
There's everything from Chisel Beach all the way up to the New Forest. is pretty much within reach of where you are,
Yeah.
within a couple of hours drive maybe. And as I said, there's just so many locations there: Corfe Castle, Durdle Door,
Yes.
Lulworth Cove.
Very good. You know your places, Grant.
I've been to Dorset. I
Yeah.
spent a couple of weeks down in Dorset trying
Yeah, I
to,
remember. Yes, I remember.
unfortunately, we weren't able to get times to match up and get together. But you gave me a steer on a few really good places, and I loved the place that I was at. It was absolutely fantastic. I really relate to what you were saying though about that euphoric feeling that you get particularly in seascapes.
Yeah.
you- You're there watching that sun just pop over the horizon
Yeah.
for the first time that day, and it's just, yeah, I don't think anything matches it, does it?
No, it is, and especially if you're with other people, it is such a you see it come up, and you just
Yeah,
have to, and it's like you adjust your camera slightly, and you think, oh, and then it's starting to, the colors coming in, the
yeah,
shadows are coming in, the water's coming in, and you're just like madly shooting away, and all of a sudden you're like 2 hours further down the line and
yep,
stood in the same position probably, or have your back aching from standing in a certain position, and you think, oh my God, I must have had at least 100 pictures in there which were worthy, and I can't wait to edit these. And
yeah.
what else can we do? And then it changes, and then you like quickly have to adapt. And yeah, I've had some surreal sort of mornings with people that you connect with on that level, because everybody's doing that same thing and everybody feels the same.
Yeah,
And afterwards, you just feel a sense of, I don't know, like you've achieved something, even though
absolutely.
it's just capturing something like that, but it's real and it's
Yeah.
nature and it's your vision as well. And that's, yeah, I find that, it's very rewarding. Just making me talk about it makes me like go out. So,
Well, hopefully it makes some of the listeners want to get out there as well. But
yeah.
I guess I'm really interested in where the creative spark came from. Was that something that
Okay. I
started
knew this was coming. I knew this was coming.
during
So I have your answer. Because, okay, so again, talking about environment. So I grew up in a little village in Holland. You got to remember, everything's flat, everything's, we're very structured, organized culture.
Sure.
The Dutch people are. But my dad, being English, he's always been, from a young age, he's showed us music from the 70s, 60s, and
Nice.
he always brought me to the speaker to listen to the background girls in music. And he's always tried to get me to pursue what I wanted to do. So he noticed when I think it was 6 or 7, and I was at a sort of like a flea market, and I bought a secondhand broken video camera.
Okay.
And it was broken, but it was like the best purchase I've ever made, because I can look through this camera and choose, I can zoom in and out, and I could choose a perspective. And I
Yeah.
loved it. Just that, even though I couldn't record it, I ran around the house pretending to record things, even though I couldn't record it.
Well,
To the point,
it's something you do when you're 6 or 7.
exactly, because it feels like I was in control of something, and I could see something through that, and it was different because I can zoom in as well. So all of a sudden
Yeah.
I could zoom into the bird that was outside and zoom into this. And even to a point where my mom said, "Stop filming me." It's like, Mom, it's it's a broken camera, but I went in it so much that it was believed when everybody thought I was really filming. To a grown up, that's pretty strange. And my dad noticed that. So he's always been the type of person who said, you can be whatever you want to be. And he's told
Nice.
us that as all as kids, as us four with 3 other siblings. And he really pushed my creativity in sense of, Vivian can do poetry. I won poetry when I was 11 with some sort of deep poetry that I wrote. Vivian loves art. She loves to paint. She loves to color. She loves to be, I did acting when I was younger as well. I wanted to be an actress. Quickly realized that's very quickly a dream of, okay, you do auditions and you get rejected, and then you think, it's maybe not
There's a
quite
lot
what
of
I want.
pain comes along with
Yeah.
the good
And then,
bits if you get to the good bit.
but exactly. And it's one of those things that makes you think about, can I do this in the future? And you get that realization quite early on of, probably not, because it's such a niche, very, especially in Holland, very niche market.
Sure.
But my dad noticed how much I have a big love for film. Films were the films like Terminator 2 shaped my life into how I am today. It still inspires me in my photography today, like sci-fi. And when I was young, it made such a profound impact on me, the visuals that I saw. I always wanted to sort of recreate that in the artworks that I did,
Yeah.
or write about it. And I wrote my own books, kids' books that I put together and bound together and made drawings and that together. And I realized that was just me as I am. And I love that so much, is creating stories out of something, creating stories out of even my Barbie dolls in a setup. It just has to be a story. So my dad said, he was the main encourager. My mum was always, of course, on my side, but in a different level, a different sort of way. And he said, would you want to be? And I said, well, I want to be a filmmaker,
Right.
to make films. And that's what I then started to pursue. And I went to art school first because I had a knack for that as well, and realized I need something a bit more practical, a bit more hands-on. So I went to a practical school to learn about filmmaking. And then, of course, within all this, you start to dabble in photography as well, because those are not moving images, but they're very close to it.
Yeah.
And I started to do analog. I did a workshop on analog photography when I was 17, 18. And there was something about it, which was for me, the inspiration of capturing movement, which you can do with photography very well, was something I loved it when people walked past, that you could have a little bit of a glare or a long exposure making them appear like they're moving. And that for me, still to the day today, if you see my photography, I love that sort of moment of it's still, but you feel like it's still moving. So the water, the cloud. And I think that comes from my sort of motion images background, but also creating that in a photograph is a challenge in itself.
Absolutely.
To do that and to make it look so visually inspiring. So that's how I went to university, did my degree in filmmaking, and meanwhile, sort of photography a little bit on the back burner. But I had a decent camera back then, and I did little things like people's events, people's kids, dogs, those kind of things that you start off with. That if you look back now, you think, how could I have edited or mixed it in that way? But back then, I thought I was pretty good at what I was doing.
Oh.
That confidence that you have as early 20s, you think you're very good at photography, when actually you learn, the more you learn, the less you know, really. Yeah. It's a hard lesson you have to learn. And then, of course, it led me here at age 25 after university, and started working with a local tourist board. And then, very quickly, I was the person to go to when it comes to hiring photographers, hiring people to do video projects, or any sort of artwork that I looked at. And it's sort of from there, it started to spark my other sort of projects. And since then, I haven't really stopped.
Fantastic. You talked about I guess, learning the video side of things, and photography sort of came along with that. That workshop, have you done any more formal photography education beyond that, or has it all been related to video and you've just applied those video lessons into your photography?
Okay, so
How does that sort of work for you?
Okay, so interestingly, when I went to university, they also teach you things like Illustrator, so illustration, graphics. They'll go into like marketing, and they went into photography as well.
Right.
So part of my university degree was a photography module that I did. But mainly in that, it wasn't just taking the pictures. It was Photoshop, learning Photoshop. So my first experience with Photoshop was at that age, about 18, 19.
Right.
And I had that at university when Photoshop opened, and it's, and I was such a novice. I didn't quite know what to do with it whatsoever. But I realized
everyone starts with Photoshop.
But yeah, it's overwhelming. It's the first time you open Photoshop and you're like, okay, you start to play around with a tool, don't you, for the first try. So then when I tried to do that, and you realize quite quickly, there's a lot of things you can do with Photoshop. There's a lot of things you can create. So that's opened up a new sort of window of creativity there, because it wasn't just about the photography itself. It's now the editing part.
Yeah.
And very quickly, I realized that editing is probably my favorite part of any creative process.
Interesting.
The editing part. So even though the shooting, you get that euphoric feeling, afterwards, the visual that you have in your mind or what you want to create will be manipulated in that sense that it will look like how you want it to look like.
Yeah.
And
You
for
can shape
me, that
it
gives that
and resolve it the way that you want it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's how it's becomes your artwork, and
Hmm.
your view and vision on it, which makes it then your shot different from the other photographers that are there. Of course, how you shoot it as well and the angle you choose all of that
Makes
as
a big
well.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You can see, you can. It's nice to hear when people can see, oh, that's a shot Vivian's done, because it has that look and feel to it that I love, and it. So that was a pivotal moment in my sort of career wise, because editing all of a sudden opened up a new window of opportunities there, and all of a sudden I could get bins out of shots. I could get people to look better than they are. I could
Yep.
things to do with editing sort of opens up. Oh, I can do portraits of people and remove this in the background, and make the lighting better, or if you don't have all the proper lights, but you can fake the lights in Photoshop and
Make them skinnier, make them prettier.
make it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's of course it comes a bit with hit and miss at first,
Sure.
because you sort of try things and you realize actually later on when you look back at it, oh, that was horrible editing. But so what I did with that was, even though I only had that module for a year, I had Photoshop on my own computer at home because I loved it so much and I loved using it so much. I started to just teach myself from that point on. So even though initially I had a module on it at university, to really get into Photoshop, you have to use it. You have to get to know it. It's
Yeah.
not just, you can just pick up once and then not do for a few months and pick up again, because then you don't properly learn what you can do with Photoshop. And so when I did that for myself on the months after that, this was, to this day, I can't live without my Photoshop and my Lightroom. I can't do my photography without it. And that's the moment where I can look at something. And even though sometimes it doesn't always work out like I want it to, and sometimes I spend days on a picture going back to it, and
Okay.
go back to it. And it's a way, if it's a process of painting almost for me,
Mm.
because I add light, I add darkness, bit of color. And sometimes I think it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I don't know quite what it is. So I put it away and come back to it again. And it needs to hit that spot where I think that's it. Now it's inspiring. Now it makes me feel excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people, when they first start editing photos, aside from the shock and awe of actually seeing, even GIMP itself, if you start out with the free tools and whatever, even Lightroom to a certain degree, you kind of need to understand what it is that you want to
Yeah.
do.
Yes, absolutely.
That for beginners is very, very difficult, because you have to understand, first off, what you want to do, how you want it to look, and then you need to be able to select the right tool to be able to
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
exactly how you want it. And the challenge I think a lot of people have is that thinking about what it is that they want it to look like. How do I want to make this raw file that I've got? It's a lovely image in and of itself. I can see some really nice structure and bones in there that I need to refine. But if I don't know what it is that I want to refine, it's then
Yeah.
to apply the right tools and apply the right technique
Yeah.
to actually make it do what you want to do.
I
How
think
did,
you hit the nail on the head there.
how did you
Yeah.
go about understanding the look and feel that you were trying to draw out of your images?
Okay. So interesting question, Grant. I think what it's like for me is when I see or feel like something, I'll give the example of Turtle Door.
Sure.
And I saw that in the morning light, and I just thought, oh, and the light's coming across here and it's giving a shadow there. And for me, I almost imagine a dragon in the sea, and and it's becoming softer and stuff. I almost go into my own sort of bubble when I'm when I'm shooting.
Mhm.
And then people even say so, like I change in terms of my personality because I'm hyper focused on this image.
Yeah.
I don't really understand what's happening around me or anything. So I become quite a danger to myself, to a point where photographers say, Vivian, you're almost off that rock, or can you just move a little bit back because that water's coming in, it's going to hit you any moment. Talking about risks when you're out there with your
Yeah.
camera. I've been over fences where people said you can't go over that fence because the things can collapse, and I just don't really realize that's happening. Anyway, I go into my own bubble,
Mm.
And I start to see and I start to think, oh, what is it I like about this? And a lot of times when I see something, I see already like a really nice clouds coming in. I think, oh, I would like to see that a little bit darker
Yep.
because for me, that's drama.
Sure.
For me, the highlight is that just the edge of that rock around the side
Yep.
and the highlight that's there to make it look even rounder, almost like a face going into the water. So I imagine that beforehand. And as soon as I get the pictures up, I guess it comes very natural to me, Grant, to see what I want to do with it. I don't know how that sort of progression went, but from spending thousands of hours of Photoshop, because I've had it since 18, I'm not
Hmm.
telling you my age now, but give or take 20 years later, I've it spending so much time with how I want it to look. Now I have a very quick way of getting there, but also sometimes you don't get it the way you want it to look. And then that wasn't the right lighting that I had on that day
Yeah.
or
Right.
shadows there. So how far do you manipulate that then yourself? And there's so many tools out there that you can do it.
Yep.
And, there are ways of completely darkening now, layering up the photographs and then saying, okay, I want this area here and I want to keep that there. And it's that process because you start to think, when does it start to feel right? And I think by just trying, trial and error, and then I look back at my first Instagram pages, I think, oh, my horizon wasn't straight. Simple things that makes you look like an amateur, which back then I didn't see. And I think now, every time I go for a shoot with landscapes, I make sure that horizon is straight. I can't
Sure.
do without that. It has to be straight, leveled. And it's things like that. You learn by trial and error. So you try and you look at it and think, okay, so next time I want this more. So next time I want this more. Plus, of course, having inspiration from other photographers. You look at other photographers, you think, wow, that's incredible what they've done. And
Yep.
even though probably you shouldn't really aspire to be exactly the same as somebody else, it's still your vision. That's
Yep.
the tough thing to do sometimes because you think, what's popular or do I go for my own vision? And
Yeah.
sometimes I have to choose between, to a point where even my mum would say to me, when are you going to photograph some flowers instead of dark clouds? I'm sick of the dark clouds. Can I have some flowers, please? But of course, that's a popular thing in the world in her life is flowers. And she has flowers on the wall. She had none of my pictures on the wall. She has only flowers, photographed flowers. And to me, I couldn't think of anything more sort of, in a sense, boring to do that because the darkness inspires me. Finding the light inspires me. Finding a curve, finding a movement inspires me. Not a beautiful flower, which looks beautiful, but doesn't spark me in any sense of any emotion.
Yeah.
So it's really a question of trying
Yeah.
over and over and over until you find your sweet spot. And then still you need to keep learning and developing.
I think you're quite right there. It's certainly my experience was looking at other people's images, trying
Yeah.
to replicate some of what they were doing, early on, trying to get my dynamic range right. Had a very entry level camera, a 500D Canon 500D, which was very entry level. That was first DSLR that I had. I had point and shoots and I had a film camera before that. But
Nice.
with a film camera, you don't get to layer different exposures and do exposure bracketing and that
Mm.
sort of thing. Yes, you can do it, but it's so manually tedious and difficult. And then if you don't have your own darkroom, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah.
anyone that says, yes, you can do it, yes, of course you can, but you have to have a number of things lined up. You have to have your own darkroom because you've got to be in control of the processing from
Mm.
creation of each of the negatives in that bracket all the way through. But I think, from a digital perspective, looking at other people's work and mimicking other people's work, not necessarily exactly the same composition, though that's acceptable, but looking at how somebody has actually done something, the techniques they're using, whether it's bracketing, whether it's compositional technique, whether it's a, particular lighting technique or whatever, I think is an important part of everyone's creative
Yeah,
cycle. And I
absolutely.
say a creative cycle because what happens is go through these cycles of, okay, I have this inspiration. This is what I want to do. How do I do that? How do I learn that? Okay, I'm going to look at other people that do that. Unless you've found something that nobody's ever done before, good luck. Then you go, okay, well, I've kind of worked out how they do that. I can then move on to refining that and building that into my own process. And then you get to that sort of steady state again where, okay, well, it's time to get inspired and do something new again.
Yes.
Go
Yeah.
through these cycles of looking at, not just looking at other people's work, but looking at what you're doing, looking at how you're working through your processes. And I think you do go through these cycles of saying, okay, well, I really want to change things up. You might decide all of a sudden that flowers are the thing that
Well, interesting enough, I did. There was when I was in Bali a few years ago for work, and I went out with my camera. Then there was a scene, a beautiful mountain scene with flowers in the foreground,
nice.
and it's funny enough because I've had several of my friends, my Dutch friends, saying that's one of my favorite pictures of yours.
Nice.
And then it's, of course, for me it was more the mountain, but the flowers in the front made it, gave that extra layer of dimension. It gave me an extra dynamic to the photograph, but also, that beauty there really worked in that situation. So, yeah, and that's the one shot my mom really liked as well. Still hasn't got on her wall though. She still has random photographers on her wall, but that's fine. That's fine. I don't. Each to their own when it comes to their.
You mentioned photographers that have influenced you. What?
Yeah.
Just name a couple that you would say have significantly influenced your work.
Okay, tough one. There's so many out there. Did you mean in terms of like Instagram, or do you mean in terms of?
It doesn't have to be Instagram. I mean, I take inspiration from a number of places. Painting artists, for example, Constable actually went to Willie Lott's cottage there in Sussex and tried to frame up and replicate one of his most famous paintings, the Haywain, which is, it couldn't get a Haywain in there, which is a wagon which carries hay, which was in a pond, but the pond is still there, the house is still there, the trees are there, and the foreground is still there. So I sort of framed that up and did something along those lines because I was inspired by his art. Yeah. So for me, it could be anybody. It could be an artist, could be a sculptor, or it could be another photographer on Instagram.
Well, even though a lot of people do inspire me on Instagram, I would say still my biggest source of inspiration is film directors.
Right.
And so if you look at the works of Stanley Kubrick, and if you look
at, I love his work, and his cinematography
is fantastic, isn't it? And absolutely. For me, I think coming from a love of film so much, I think for me, especially when I said about sci-fi, because I don't just do landscapes, I like going for cityscapes and getting sci-fi colors in there. For me, it's Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. When it comes to when I go in the forest, it has to be a Lord of the Rings sort of feel to it. I have to hear that sound in my head of the elves coming along and the hobbits. And then for me, that's inspiring in itself. I need to find one of those old trees. I need to find something mystical in the forest. For me, films are my inspiration more than I would say individual photographers, even though I love looking at photographers' work. And of course, like you said, you choose elements. You think, oh gosh, I wish I could do it that way, or how have they done that? And sometimes reaching out to them, that's what's good about Instagram. They'll tell you how they've done it. They'll tell you what lens they've used. They'll tell you what exposure they've used. And then you think, okay, so they've done it this way. You try it yourself. It always turns out slightly different. But definitely a lot of people on Instagram. But more importantly, if you look at, the grand films like Interstellar, Dune, the Blade Runner, one of my biggest inspiration. That's why I would love to go to Japan and get shots there. It's so profound from when I was a child, having those visuals, because I dream about them, I see them. And whenever I see something similar to that, it instantly gets me, it instantly grabs me. What I said about even Door, I imagine a dragon. Yeah. It's for me, those sort of elements of even Spielberg, and with the mystical and the darkness that comes into that, and the grittiness of it sometimes, and the fog in the background, those kind of things come from films for me more predominantly than anything else. And I think maybe that makes me a little bit different maybe from other photographers. But because of that, capturing those moments, I think, and that feels like a film to me. That's why I bring that back in my work. That's feels like a little achievement in terms of it's not a film, but it's that moment in film that I've created myself, my own imaginary world. And there's a lot of people that inspire me, even though their work, I think, is in a sense sort of a little bit out of reach. Manfred, who's he does drone photography as well, where he has landscapes and then has really straight lines of drone footage around it. I think that's amazing. It looks beautiful. It looks like something I would have on my wall, but something I haven't really done before myself. I don't really feel I have those skills yet, or that I sort of feel I probably need to be in a group of people who know what they're doing when it comes to drones at night to be able to accomplish something like that. But it's something I would one day want to try. And it's looking at that work in keeping up and seeing it over and over. It just makes you think I want to try it one day, but also I can really appreciate someone else doing it so amazingly.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I love the film references. Have you seen I think it's on Netflix, the series Ripley?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
The cinematography in
Yeah,
there.
it's amazing in that.
As soon as I started watching it, I just fell in love with the feel of that black and white. It just blows me away. I still haven't matched it yet. I'm trying.
I think a lot of photographers get inspired. I think a lot of photographers love Lord of the Rings as well. When I see
absolutely
them up, and I know people who shoot toy photography, and they're very much inspired by Star Wars and characters and Marvel and all of that. It's or Batman and all of those films. I guess it is in our creative mind. I think that's, when you see a tree like that, people will comment, it's a Lord of the Rings tree, it's a Lord of the Rings scene.
Yeah.
Whether you look at yourself or not, that's ingrained in us so much about the sort of pop culture and the world of visuals that we have around us. I think inspires us daily when it comes to that. But I think it's important for us to sort of stay, because sometimes I guess I always want the cinematic feel, but sometimes it doesn't quite work in the situation I'm in, like some of those Bali shots with the flowers. It wasn't really cinematic at all.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it's inspired some of my friends to say, this is my favorite picture of you, and people wanted to buy it off me. I think that's probably not one of my favorite. It's not one of my favorite pictures, but for other people, it was. And I think there's so much more to photography. There's so much more to it. That, it inspires and sparks emotions in different levels, in different ways, in different people.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing that happens with people's photography. I know that there's work that I've put out into the world that I really love that garners absolutely no engagement, or is like,
I know,
just pushing it out into the abyss, nothing abstract. Then there's these ones that you kind of go, it's a nice shot, put it out there and you just get bombarded and everyone goes, that's amazing. And you go, it's all right.
Yeah, it is. But it is, I guess, because we all have our opinions, don't we? We all have
absolutely different
attracted to beauty, aren't they? Yeah. There's a shot I did in the Lake District for me, it was very Lara Croft Matrix sort of Tomb Raider look that I had. I love, to this day, I love that shot.
Yeah.
And that didn't get a lot of engagement. And when I show people, I don't think it really sparks them, but it sparks me personally, because I feel, the
essence of what creativity is about. It's what makes your spark happen.
Yes.
That really matters.
Absolutely.
It's nice if somebody else comments and says, I like it and like your work in general or whatever. But I think it is all about what makes your spark happen. Otherwise, why would you do it?
Exactly. So if it doesn't spark me, then anyway. Yeah.
What was the first landscape photo that you took that lit that spark for you? You said you came to the UK and the coastal scenes were sort of what drew you to getting into that sort of photography. Which one was it that you just said, this is it, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life?
Okay, I'm trying to think. I remember vividly, when I started to do sort of proper sort of long exposures.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I got really good quality filters for the first time. And I went to Bournemouth Beach, and there was a sort of like a groin where they stick out
Yep.
so it was a good focal point for me. And this is something I did see other photographers do as well. But that was my first proper attempt at long exposure when it comes to the water and the clouds. And I've done it before with people, but not quite like that before.
Oh.
And when I got that, when I looked in my camera and at first it was very blurry. Oh, this didn't quite work. You have to keep it dead still. And f-stop, do I put it on? And you start to sort of experiment a bit. Oh, it's way too overexposed. It needs to darken a bit. So you darken it. So you get to about like maybe a 10th or 20th shot, or maybe 50th. I can't quite remember. But at some point, all of a sudden, you had it.
Yep.
And the water was smooth. And that moment when I had that shot of the groin and the water was smooth, it just, yeah, this, you get like a butterfly in your stomach, don't you? That's,
I've got it.
you know, you almost want to share it with the world. There's nobody there around you, but you sort of go like, that's it. I've done it. And it's there. And I couldn't believe it, because on the shot, you can see something you can't see in real life. And it's there on the back of your camera. You think, you can, okay, then you want to do it again, and you want to do it again, and different angle. And I remember spending hours, and it got cold and it got dark, but I went back so happy. And of course, probably 80% was blurry, because you don't really realize how still you need to have it when you do. And of course, the sand's underneath your feet, and you sometimes hold the camera when you shouldn't really. You should just let it go and press the button. So there's a lot of failed attempts there. But when I finally got it with the right filter, that I was hooked from that moment, because and I couldn't wait to share it with the world. And that was probably one of the ones, I think that was one of the ones where I had not where I wasn't straight, where the
horizon,
horizon wasn't straight, but I had but I had the long exposure coming up. So, the water becomes all milky and smooth. And there's a few times where I remember that vividly was from my shots where the water was smooth and becomes milky, and you just get you can't believe that's your shot sort of feeling. That's what you get from it. Yeah. And I think you almost want to go back to what that feels like. But now I sort of feel like I need a bit more than just that. I want more, some elements to my shots to share with the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, I remember that quite well. I couldn't wait to share it with everyone, even though I don't think anybody else gets excited, but you do.
You do. Yeah. And that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm also really keen to explore that process of trial and error and the process of failing to get yourself to the point where you succeed. How do you deal with failure? And I look at it myself mostly as learning rather than failure. But how do you deal with when you sit there and you repeat and you repeat and you try different things and it just doesn't work for you? What do you do when that happens?
Okay.
Other than kick the tripod.
I guess, okay, that's a tough one, because I'm quite strict with myself when it comes to those kind of things. If it's work for myself, though, it's very different from work for a client. Just to say, of course, when it's for clients, the level of anxiety you get, if you have to do, if you've done weddings before, if you've done photography with kids before and you can't quite get them to do what you want them to do, there's a lot of anxiety around that, sort of getting it right. Yep. But my sort of tactic is a little bit there. I'm going to shoot as much as I possibly can. There must be something in there that's right, and change the angles and change the f-stops. And, and at some point, sometimes it surprises you that the shots you think wouldn't work actually work really, really well.
Yeah.
So in that sense, when it comes to failure, I'm prepared for any sort of client shoot. I make sure I have 4 batteries, triple batteries, 2 cameras, extra lighting, any sort of situation I can think of, it's there. I go to a place that looks similar to that, or go to the actual environment where I need to shoot and practice shooting, and I make sure I understand exactly what the client wants. So from that perspective, preparation is probably your best way to deal with anything that comes your way, because photography is like filmmaking. There's problem solving a lot of the time. You have to deal with your environment, and you have to think on the spot.
Yeah.
But I think being so creative, I can think of solutions quite quickly. Even when you have that light, you think, okay, well, there's light there. Let's try and move people over there, and I'm not afraid to tell people to move over there.
Yeah, right.
That's also something. As a photographer, you need to be able
Well,
to direct.
certainly your production skills come into play there, because as a producer,
Absolutely.
you've got to be able to say, that's
Yeah.
not right. We need to change. You need to do this or that to make this better.
And I just do that. And I think that's maybe a little bit of a cultural thing, Grant, but
Yeah.
I guess I just, because I know it's beneficial for them, just listen to me because it will look better in the long run. It will. I think sometimes people find that quite surprising that I can just say, okay, this is not going to work. We need to stand over there. Come on. And I get the whole group to move along. Even if it's 100 people at a wedding that I need to move in a different spot, I'll do it. Yeah, and I have to be as loud as I can to get them to move, but I'll do
Yeah.
it because I think to myself, I need to get this shot right
Yeah.
for my client because I will do my very best. I'll give 110%. When it comes to my own work, I guess I'm a lot stricter with myself, unfortunately. My inner voice sometimes, when I don't get quite the shot that I wanted, I thought I should have had a different lens there. I didn't get close enough. You look back at shots and didn't quite get it. Oh, you should have, could have moved and I could have done this. And I'm a lot more of a critic to myself, my own work, because I think, and I guess this comes back to, the whole Instagram community, because if you want to put stuff on there and it's going to be looked at and feel judged a little bit by people out there, you very quickly, oh, this is not my best work, so I'm not going to put it on there.
Sure.
And a lot of pictures get just shoved into folders, I have thousands of pictures that are just left because you sort of give up on it sometimes, don't you? You think, and with that trial and error thing, that's why I said you try so much. You've done tens of thousands of photographs easily, because you keep trying and trying. The failure that's there, even to a point now where still I go out there and don't quite get the light that I want or quite get the shot that I had in my head, and I end up thinking, no, I'm not using any of this.
Yep.
Still going out there and doing it, you learn from that, thinking I should have for next time. Okay, the sun's on that side, so I'll try it on this side next time. Or it's a constant learning thing. And I think if you think you can't learn anymore, then you're in the wrong place.
Oh, definitely.
You always, and then I think, oh, I'd like to try something with portraits. So now I've started to do portraits with landscapes and try to combine that because those are my two favorite. Well,
Sure.
Landscapes are my favorite thing, but now trying to put a people element, a person element into it. And you start to think, how can I do this differently? How can I make this my vision? And then you get excitement again. And then you want to do that more. But then a lot of that comes with insecurity because I put a picture on my Instagram with a portrait picture in landscape and think, does that work? Do people actually like what I'm doing? Are they just telling me what I want to hear?
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, Viv, this is not for you, or you need to practice more before you start putting this on. You do get that feeling of, and then I think, looking back, some pictures had so much more engagement, so much more better views when I think it's not actually that good.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, production levels wise and all of that. And I think, but that got so much more engagement. You think sometimes it's just, for people, it's not always about the technical efforts. It's just how it makes them feel.
Absolutely not. Most people that look at anyone else's images have absolutely either no idea or no care factor about how it was made.
Exactly.
Whether, you've used glass plate with silver nitrate and then reproduce that in a dark room and then put it through Photoshop and Lightroom and all the rest of it to create this digital rendition of that glass plate image that you took. And it's taken you 40 or 50 hours just to put together that one shot that you took. Nobody cares.
But it's when I see photographers and I really see, wow, how has he done that?
Oh, absolutely. As a photographer, but I'm talking about 90% of the people that will see.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, but I can really appreciate it, and I can really appreciate it with film directors as well. Yeah. Like Kubrick was so intricate in all his themes and
manufacturing his own lenses and
yes, exactly. To that, and I can really. I think that's amazing. I think that's I think that's an art form. Beyond a mastermind work.
Absolutely.
And I can really, really appreciate that in someone's work. And that sometimes it's just because of that that it's not really about the image itself, but it's how much work's gone into, how much detail's gone into it. Any sort of artist that puts a lot of effort, and some of these people can sketch things really small and then make it really big, and you think, God, there's been hours, weeks, months of work into one piece, and that's that's pretty impressive. That's incredible, and I love that in people's work. But I think you're right. I think sometimes it's just a beautiful sunset and a few flowers and a few movements, and then people are just absolutely go crazy for it. And it's such a simple thing that I took, or a whim almost, took my camera out to the beach and took a shot there, and minimum editing because it was already had the colors that I wanted, and then people love it. So it's that thing of, I think sometimes that gets you a little bit trapped in your mind to think, should I go for something that's very popular that please everyone, or should I go with something that I like?
And I think we've all done it. We always like to get engagement on our work.
It is.
Such a main
Yeah.
thing. I've started to force myself to stop thinking about that and just post what feels nice to you.
Yeah.
If somebody says something nice about it, great. If somebody says nothing about it, oh well.
Yeah.
They love them.
I feel the same, and I feel the same, Grant, because I'm to a point now where I don't have to have that kind of engagement anymore. I don't, I get work despite that.
Yeah.
So it's for me, I have my bread and butter daily. So for me, this is my own venture. This is my own project. And if it's not true to myself, I'm doing it for everybody else. It's the point of really doing it, because it's not.
Exactly. Client work is client work, and what your client wants, the client will get.
Yeah.
In as much as you can deliver it. I know I've done some travel work, and they wanted sunshine and golden beaches when it was pouring for 2 weeks.
Oh no, that's worse.
I can't do it.
No, but that's yeah. I've had that before as well. Yeah.
But as I say, you just kind of you kind of move on and just get on with it. We talked a little bit about the failures, if you like, or the learnings. What about where you actually start to think outside the box and experiment a bit with your work? I've seen some of your work, studio work in particular, which obviously has quite a lot of film themes to it. I'm just interested in how you go about thinking about that experimentation process and saying, okay, well, I'm going to do something completely different to, Dirtle Door or something else, Lulworth Cove or something like that. What do you think about when you're cooking up a new idea and it's something that you've not tried before, whether it be genre or a technique?
So interesting, because I get a lot of inspiration. I have like folders and documents and bookmarks full of things that I love to see visually. But there are moments when I see something or feel something somewhere, and I think to myself, I want to experiment with this. So one of the main things I've been looking at was, a while ago, I started doing a little bit of toy photography.
Okay.
And I had a statue of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. And put him in the forest, and it had a bit of aerosol atmosphere added to him to add some effect. And, I love doing that. I really enjoyed it. I just feel like I need, what people can do nowadays with toy photography is incredible. Some of these toy photographers out there. And I feel like if I start doing that, it's going to divert away from my landscape, portrait, events, film work, studio work, and go into a very different sort of way of photography. So I feel that's probably a little bit of what's holding me back doing it, because I feel like it's worth my time doing, because you always think the little time you have, because I have little time, I work a lot. And as you know, we had to reschedule this a few times. I spend time with family, friends, everything. So I have to see whether it's worth my time trying to experiment on new things.
Interesting.
If I was 16 and still at school, I felt like I had all the time in the world to do anything I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Now I have to dedicate my time to say, I'm going to really try and do it, and for what reason? Yep. Unfortunately, which dampens a bit of creativity. But sometimes I just feel, I just need to get out there and just do it, and just go ahead and do it, because it's not just always about the benefits you get from it. It's the feeling you get from it, and to make you keep coming back to it. And I think at the moment where I've hit a point where I don't want to do the same landscapes over and over and over. I want to do something new. I want to experiment with light. I want to experiment with portraits. I want to experiment with objects in and create scenes, which ultimately, my ultimate dream of creating a film or creating a scene that's different from real life is something that really, but taking inspiration from real life is something that really inspires me to do things like that. So I think making a toy into a situation where it looks real or looks like it could be something really tangible, really real and in nature. Sort of, how can I make that happen? And then it sets my sort of challenging creative mind going of, oh, maybe I should have done it that, or should I use some real ground in the foreground or something to make it look real? And then I've started to get, because I get a lot of people asking me for portrait work.
Yep.
And which is sort of like, which, it's all word of mouth and people, it's not really via my Instagram, it's more people that I know.
Yeah, right.
And then I just think, okay, then you have these people or have these models do something for me in a situation like, I did, for example, a couple of years ago, I did a girl doing ballet.
Yep.
In the forest. So she had black ballet movements, beautiful. She had a black, like a ballet suit on. And when she stood up with doing the plie in a dark forest. And for me, that was so inspiring I couldn't stop getting shots of that, because it just, and something like that would spark me, oh, I want to do this again in a different situation with a different person.
Yeah, right.
But it has to be something that all of a sudden hits me. Like I saw that Sauron, the Hot Toys, what they're called. I saw that in a store, and that instantly got me going. Or I'll see, Stranger Things, the new series on Netflix. It's beautifully done as well. That inspires me to, all the things that are floating around. And so could I create something like that myself? And if I think I can do it, and I have the means, I have the tools to do it in, and I have the time to do it in, then it's the right environment for me to experiment. But when I'm stuck with, I need to have my full-time job, dealing with my family, I'm dealing with things, then that takes over, and my photography just gets on the back burner because it's then becomes less important than my actual life stuff that's happening. And unfortunately, the older I get, I feel like I have less and less time to do experimental work. And so I miss that. I do miss that. Yeah. It's
I know I've got at least or roughly about 30 years on you on that. And you do start to get very conscious of time, and that focus on, okay, not necessarily what's going to give me the best bang for the buck, but that focus on, okay, what's important to me? What do I focus on? And that balancing act of family, work life, home life, and then this thing that you have this drive to do, you have to create balance in your life to actually make that work. Otherwise, the family goes away, and all you're left with is this thing that you want to do.
Yeah,
but it's not much of a life,
No, and that's tough, because of course I would love to do nothing more than just do experiments with photography all day and video. If someone could just pay me to do that, would be great. But realistically, when I'm out there and I'm shooting some toys and I'm doing this for days on end, editing and all of that, people are going to say, Viv, what are you doing? Sort of thing. It's sort of, I have to almost justify why I'm doing the things I'm doing.
Where's the money coming from?
Yeah, exactly. What are you spending? And I have to get this lens to do this kind of shoot with. Okay. But then do you get the money back for it? Not really. I don't, because I got it for a different reason, which is just to experiment. And I think it's important to know where you have to have a balance in life, don't you? Because
definitely,
family's obviously the most important thing to me is family.
Yeah.
And that comes number one. And if my family needs me, or, my sister with her new baby, she needs me to come over, I need to make that a priority over me going out there and shooting some toys. But if you can, and you have the means to do it, and you have the time to do it, definitely and I think that's when I was here and I started out with my new camera, going into nature. That was the best time. And that was a lot of experimenting. And that's where we got to me today, and where I've grown today by doing that.
Yeah.
And I would have never have gotten that if I didn't do that in my free time. If I would have just had that at work or anything, I wouldn't have been on this journey and people asking me for work all the time if I didn't do that myself and put the work in myself after hours in my own times, in the mornings and evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
So it's so important to do that.
I think that's absolutely fantastic advice. It's, you know, something that a lot of people that haven't come to that realization in their lives, that these are the things that are vital and important to me. They need to work that balance out, but they also need to feed that creative drive, and get that balance together can be very, very difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of balance, you mentioned putting yourself in some sketchy positions at times. Do you have any horror stories from your photography career?
Yeah, of course. I think we all have that. I think as photographers, the main thing is looking after your kit is one of the biggest things. I've had before where I've also been with with a couple of people on our shoots where it was completely dark and we went to Spit Caves, also on Dorset, on the Jurassic Coast, to do some night sky astrophotography. And when we got there, it was pitch black dark, and we had to walk through a bunch of sort of trees and areas to get through to the area we need to go to, which is Winspit. And when I remember walking through this really dark path, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and it feels very surreal at that point because you're with two people that you sort of know, but not quite know.
Yeah.
And
you met online.
Yeah, I met online, and you sort of think at some point, you keep walking and you think to ourselves, am I dreaming? Is this real where I'm walking? Because you can't see anything for ages. It's very, very hard to see because you need to be in pitch black dark to do astrophotography. That's why you go to those dark places, but you have a little like torch light to sort of see where you're going. But sort of in your own imagination, lack of sleep, and people around you that you don't quite know, you sort of see things in the dark, don't you? A little bit. Oh, you start to sort of see things around you, and people, is that a squirrel, something that walked past me, or and I had that moment where I thought to myself, what am I doing here? Is this safe? And I think, especially as a woman, you tend to have that guard up a little bit more as you.
Absolutely.
Female photographers, I couldn't do that on my own at 2 o'clock in the morning in that place in the dark. I have to have people there for my own state of mind, but also if I fall on trip, I'm vulnerable in that sense. So there's a lot of shoots probably I don't do because I don't have anybody with me to go and do that with, because not everybody wants to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go with you to do a shoot, even just to keep you safe. People think, no, never going to do that. So it's one of those. So that was quite a surreal moment, but in the end, it worked out and we got amazing, beautiful astro shots. Which was on one of the nights that I remember being so awe-inspired by feeling tiny in this planet Earth with this beautiful Milky Way above us. So it's definitely worth it.
I think astro shots are special for that sort of your headspace. As you said, there's lack of sleep. I know I've done astro shoots on my own, sometimes on a beach, sometimes in the bush. The ones in the bush tend to be a little bit weirder. You're there and you're concentrating on setting up and you've got everything working and you're starting to get some shots, and then all of a sudden there's this rustle in the leaves or the bushes, and you kind of go, okay, how big is that animal? What sort of animal is it? All of these things start running through your head.
But I think even for you, because, in Australia, that's even bigger. Anything can kill you in Australia. That's a great thing.
Mostly it's going to be a wombat or a kangaroo or whatever.
Okay.
It could be something that will hit.
Yeah. That makes me feel like, because I was mentioning a squirrel, but for me, just even or a badger or something like that. But I guess just because there's no people around. It's pitch black dark. It's in the middle of the night. There's nobody around for a map for kilometers because
there's no other sound other than that rustling.
No, exactly. And it's sort of like your senses go really heightened, don't they?
Absolutely.
Because it's so dark, and you can all of a sudden you can hear everything. And that what you said about you could see things or hear things, and you sort of think your sort of instinct of getting away from that a bit, being cautious, And then, of course, you're then also euphoric about what you're shooting. So it's a bit of a, it almost feels like when you come back home and you go back to sleep or go back to your day, like, did that really happen? Did that happen? Was I really there, or did I imagine it? So I've had those moments before. And I've also had moments where, unfortunately, I've had some kit broken, and that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking, isn't it? And I don't know how to explain that to other people, but I had it once where I had the wrong tripod for my very heavy camera, because I have different tripods for different cameras. And I had a lighter tripod because, of course, carrying that around in my bag, sometimes you think, okay, I just need to remember to hold it because it doesn't quite hold my camera quite well on its side. It's fine, horizontal, but not portrait as much. And for a split second, I sort of forgot that. And it was on the tripod, and I wasn't even near the camera. I was 2 meters away with my bag and trying to look for a filter. And it just went like that on some rocks. And the camera, the lens was massively damaged. The camera as well was scuffed. And that moment where you see that, it's almost like a slow motion moment.
Yeah.
Because you almost, I just saw the last of it, and I heard somebody screaming, and you think, and fortunately I did have insurance, but of course this is your baby, this is your camera, this is my best lens and my best, and I couldn't shoot anymore. That was another thing, because I wasn't done shooting. The light was just getting right, and you sort of want to cry, but also on the other hand, you think it's replaceable, but that hurts. It hurts. And then it was broke.
It hurts a lot. I've ground my camera 3 times, I think.
Really?
Yeah, had the innards replaced completely, mostly salt corrosion. That's usually what does it.
Yeah.
And I lost a 24-70 2.8 lens to a tripod fall.
Really? Yeah.
Landed on the lens, and it actually sort of, the bit that zooms sort of went like this inside the lens itself was fine. The glass was
okay
because I had the lens hood on, so it sort of landed on that. But the jolt, the heaviness of the jolt, basically just shifted the whole thing. And I took it in to see if it could be repaired, and that wasn't going to happen. So that was an insurance.
Yeah.
I'll get another one.
It's just painful when that happens in a moment, because
it ruins the whole moment, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like the whole shoot that you were doing so well. And this was also, funny enough, it was on my birthday as well. So it was my birthday shoot. So it's really looking forward to it. Really took the time to go somewhere, and your heart sinks, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And all the way home, you're sort of holding on to your camera. It's horrible. But yeah, I've had those surreal moments, and I've had those moments with kit. And it's the main thing, I think. That's why it's always good advice to go with other people. I rarely ever go alone on a shoot. I did that in Bournemouth Beach, but then there was always people around. Yeah. But as a woman, definitely find other people to go with, keeping you safe. So I've had a few times where I've slipped off rocks before as well. And I think if I break my ankle and I'm all the way by myself here and my phone doesn't work, half the time your phone doesn't work in these places.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to wait for someone to come along and help you. So it's, things like that. Risky business, the photography world. So you have no idea. Yeah.
I've got a few questions that I ask pretty much everyone on the show, and I'll sort of start going through those now. Where do you see photography's place in society? I know this is a big question, but what do you think is the place of photography in society at the moment?
So I've been thinking about that a lot, especially because of the upcoming AI. Now a very big conversation point between photographers and creatives overall.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody think this is going to replace us. But actually, I talk to a lot of people in the industry, in tech industry, because I interview them for my work.
Yep.
And from what I gather from them is, yes, it is something to be thinking about. But as all technology grows and develops, if you're ahead of that and if you use it to your advantage, because it's not going to go away, AI is not going to just disappear off the planet.
Certainly.
So you need to stick with what you can learn from that and develop with it, I think is a very important thing. If people just say, I'm just going to do the same thing over and over, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be replaced. I say replaced. There's going to be different roles that are happening. There's going
Yeah.
to be a lot of roles around governments. It just changes the way how we work. I don't think photography itself is just going to go away and people just want AI pictures on their wall. I don't think
In particular landscape, it's never going to stop me. AI I don't call it photography. AI imaging is never going to stop me wanting to go out and have the experience.
because it's real.
That's it.
Because that's
It's an
real.
experience.
It's an experience, yes. It's reality, isn't it? And the thing is, AI can never, even though how beautiful these shots are,
Doesn't matter how good it gets.
it doesn't matter how good it gets, it's still not real.
That's right.
And I think that's that value of, and I think a lot of people think, oh, and it's going to replace how I do shot, but people still need pictures to take at weddings. Is there going to be an AI robot walking around taking those pictures, knowing exactly what they want from them? It's that thing of, it's so far we still need humans in those loops of. I think it will just change more to sort of different roles. I think our roles will just change into more. We use AI to our advantage, which is fine, but the reality of creating real portraits with real people that still want their own portrait taken, it still needs to be there. It still needs to be done by a human.
Yeah.
And landscapes, the same thing. I don't want an AI landscape on my wall. I want the real thing. I want real Mount Fuji on my wall. I want the real Durdle Door on my wall. Yeah. I don't want it to be created because what's the beauty in that? That there is no beauty.
There's no experiential joy in it.
No, there's no soul in that.
That's right.
There's no soul in that. Whereas when a photographer does it, there's passion, there's creativity, there's a vision, there's all of these elements that AI doesn't have. And I think that's important for people because I have known people who said, I'm going to give up on photography because of AI. And it's sad to think that they feel like they need to give up on that. But I think out there in this beautiful world that we have, we still need people real people to be there and capture that. It cannot just be something that's fictional and created out of nothing because it's not.
Yeah.
It's really his thing.
One of the risks that I think marketing people in particular haven't, that use AI in their work haven't yet considered is the challenge of creating something unique, because AI is trained on other things. And yes, it can generate something that you think of. And if you think of a unique idea, you can convey to AI and it will generate something that looks different. The issue is that over time just feeds off itself, and the learning, because now starting, the AI image generators and language models have pretty much consumed everything that's out there on the internet. So what else is it going to keep learning on? It's only going to start to learn on what's being generated out of AI. So I think over time, you're actually going to end up with a sameness. It's not necessarily your unique idea will still be your unique idea, but everything that it's based on is going to be based on something that already exists. And it's very difficult for those marketing types to actually come up with things that are absolutely unique. And I think that's something that I don't think a lot of people using that in business have actually started to think about in reality. And it's a challenge. It's not here yet, but it's a challenge down the track where it's going to be very difficult, as I say, to find uniqueness in artificially generated imagery.
And I think then that adds more value to when things are unique, doesn't it? That way.
Yeah.
It becomes more precious. And it's a good way of seeing it, Grant. I haven't quite thought about that point. Yeah.
What do you think is the future of photography? Where do you see it going?
I think so far as human beings, we are drawn to visuals. We need it it's every day, everywhere, isn't it? You cannot look almost around you without seeing a picture somewhere. There's Christmas cards here, there's pictures on the wall, there's DVDs with pictures on, there's books over there. It's even all around you all the time, isn't it? And I think photography, even though it will change because of AI, I think that will happen and roles will change and how people see it and view it, because but it won't, I think maybe people will give up on it more, unfortunately. But I think having a human there to make real content I don't think that will ever go away.
No,
I don't see that ever going away
I don't think
because
so either. Yeah.
we don't. If we become a society of robots doing robot work, then there's no life or soul or passion to anything. And if that's missing, surely people will want to find that again. And I think
You'd hope so.
because I think there's a moment now. I think as me being sort of a millennial, where I've experienced life before the internet slightly when I was younger. It's changed so much in how we do, and it's changed relationships and how we do. Well, we sit on our phones and social media and all of that. But also photography now, I see a lot of things where I think that could be AI. I'm not quite sure, but people are very much, I can sense that people are saying, I don't want this to become part of me. And people want to be against it and don't want to see it.
Yeah,
They want the reality. They want the passion. They want people to still do that work.
absolutely.
And that needs to be protected. And I think people like myself working in the media sort of world and that industry, we have that duty of making sure that, okay, AI does things quicker for us, puts tasks together and it does things for us, doing the dishes and things so we can do something else. But it is our job as well to make sure it all becomes governed and protected. And I think out there now, there's a booming, there's so many apps now, anything that makes images at the moment is not governed enough and not structured enough and not looked at enough. I think we need to have that in place. And I think we're all responsible for that, especially people in this industry that use it need to say, okay, well, it needs to come with these rules. Because almost now you can even get a picture of someone and make them do anything you want, pretty
Very
much.
so. Yeah.
And, you can then put their voice to it. And there's a lot of fakeness happening around. And I think the more this is happening, the more people are against it. I think there's a lot of people who are against it. I myself are against that, even though I use AI for my work at work. I feel like there needs to be a sense of governance. There needs to be a sense of, we need to protect what's real and we need to, not let it run loose and do its own thing. We need to be able to, as humans, decide where we're going to use it and use it wisely.
Yeah.
And I think photography in that sense will change, but I don't think people will ever not want that to be real. I don't see that.
As you said, weddings and events, I don't I don't see that has to have a human element in my.
Yeah. So many things, isn't
Well,
it?
and again, comes back to my point that I was made about the future problem for marketers. If every wedding was photographed by a robot, right, whether it be a flying drone or a thing on wheels or even on legs, whatever, some kind of machine did that, eventually every wedding photography shoot will look the same because that's all it can do. It's going to repeat what it's seen before. And so there won't be creativity in wedding shoots. Now, I think, some wedding shoots go way over the top in their creativity. It's kind of like, well, did you really need to spend that much on that shot?
That's a whole entirely conversation itself.
I know. But you see what I mean is that because it is going to say, okay, well, and yes, okay, there are the formulaic shots that you've got to have the entire family, you've got to have the bridal party, you've got to have the father of the bride and the mother of the bride and so on. There are formulas that you can go through there. And yes, those formulas work, but I don't think the creativity behind some of those formulas is necessarily going to be replaceable by AI. I might be wrong, but I just think you'll just end up with sameness. People will go, well, I actually want a person to think about this differently.
Yes. Yeah.
The AI is not working for me, or it hasn't worked for those 100 other weddings, sets of photos I've looked at.
Yeah. And it's that thing of, same thing. We're going to send robots out to take pictures of Mount Fuji or Door. And they can create something which is unique about, because I'd still know it's made by something that doesn't think and feel like we do.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be that advantage. We just need to make sure that sort of paradigm shift of having people think about this in a way of, it can help us. Yeah. And it's there to stay, this technology, but we need to control it and we need to be there, because then that stays true to We
Yeah.
still need
I
humans.
want, I want my AI doing the dishes while I go out
Exactly.
and take photos. I don't
Exactly.
want it going out and taking photos while I'm doing the dishes.
Exactly. But that's how we should have it. We should be the dominant species in that sense of, talking about
I
sunflower.
hope we can maintain that dominance.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think if there's enough people with this, and we talk about create awareness for, and I think this is now to a point where it's booming so much, we need to just rein it back in to see, we need to govern this and look after it.
Yeah.
And I think that's happening. I think people are realizing that. I think so.
I think so. I do fear for some people's roles and jobs.
Yeah.
But I also think it's an inevitable process that we're going to have to go through now, that kind of like we're at the cusp of the industrial revolution in the 1700s again.
Yeah.
And, I might be a Luddite going to smash the looms, but so be it.
Yeah.
What's the best and or worst piece of advice somebody's ever given you?
Someone's ever given me. Okay. So in terms of in general or in life or photography or creative?
Whatever you want.
I think one of the best things people have told me is, especially I think at the start when I was doing photography and I was doing my own creative projects, like I said before, you can get lost into what other people want to see and what other people want you to do. And there's this pressure in society to do what other people want to see or please everybody else. And I think one of the main things that I've learned sort of getting older, sort of like in my early 20s when I was very much influenced by people around me, one of the best things someone's told me is to just stay true to myself and my own path.
Yeah.
Because if you get to the end of life and you look back on it and you think, I've done everything everybody else wanted me to do, never really done my own, then you've lived for someone else and not for yourself. And I think that's not a selfish thing. That's actually you being true to your own energy and your own creativity and your own, and I've done that my way. That's very famous words, Sinatra. Stuck to what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And, if you have regrets doing certain things or you learned from mistakes, okay, but I've made those choices myself. And it's very easy, I think, for a lot of people, especially if you're a bit more vulnerable, you're a bit more insecure, which a lot of creatives are, to get sucked into what people say they need to do and how they need to, and they need to do model photography, and then the models need to look sexy, and they need to have this, and they need to look gorgeous. And I think sometimes we get so much pressure from that around us. Not saying all influencers are like that, but some are, and you just feel like you need to do that in order to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's sad, really, to think about that we all trying to go that way, and we all need to use the same songs to promote things because it's trending and do all that. And I get sucked into it as well sometimes. It's not
everybody does, I think.
Yeah, we all do. And I think one of the main things is really if you stay true to what I want to do, even though it's less popular, it's not the approval of my mom. At the end, I do get approval, but it's flowers. It's not her thing. No, and it's hard to explain to her how I feel, but she's very proud of me. I know that. But when I tell her, Mom, I want to do it my way, this is going to be my future, this is my path. And she says, you're always going to struggle and make it harder for yourself. But it's my hurdles to overcome and my road to go.
Yeah.
Because then it's at least the life that I've created for myself instead of wasting it on other people's judgments and other people's wants and beliefs. So just because they have more popularity.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes, even as a female, sometimes I struggle with that because I get, it's people say, why are you going in front of the camera? And it's a very much of it's nothing to do with because visually I want to create my own. So I can tell anybody to stay true to, if you feel this is not the right way to go, I want to try this, to do it, to just try, even if you feel, like you said, you learn from those things, don't you? You learn what you don't like, you learn what you like. And I think if you make those own choices based on how you feel and how you think, oh, it's not for money or popularity, but this will give me some sort of answer to how I feel, where I want to go. That's how I got to the point where I am today. And that's how I got this job being a producer, and how I got to know so many people and work for so many people, is by going the road I wanted to take
Yeah.
and not doing the popularity thing. But that's a tough one. That's a tough
Yeah.
one. I think you only learn that when you get a little bit older and you're confident in yourself and what you're doing.
Definitely. Definitely.
So keep trying, keep going, believe in yourself.
What do you like to do when you're not doing photography or videography or?
Ah, oh, the list goes on. Grand. I love doing sports. I love doing working out. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love spending time with people. Of course, I love seeing movies. My best things. I'm watching all of the Quentin Tarantino films lately again and series.
Nice.
I get so much inspiration from that. You know, I think, oh, I love these colors, and I love going to the cinema and seeing them on the big screen. But for me, it's all. I mean, even do my makeup is a creative thing for me. I need to be creative every day. There has to be some sort of creativity in the
Nice.
things I do, and yeah, I guess that's around the world of photography. Being out in nature, even sometimes without a camera, sometimes can be very nice. Can be very nice. It's hard to enjoy something just with your eyes. But I've been trying to do that for the sake of the people around me sometimes, because like I said, I can be in my own zone and forget about people around me. And people say I become so hyper focused on what I'm doing. I forget that there's an actual person around me that just wants to chat or just wants to have a walk in nature with me.
Yeah.
And sometimes putting the camera down, it's nice to just enjoy life as it is, the beauty as it is, without trying to capture it.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
definitely.
All right. I've only got a couple more questions for you. Are there any
Okay.
photographers out there that you think I need to have on the podcast?
One of my friends, actually, Tom Omerod. I don't know if you heard of him before. So he's he's one of the first ones I've met when I moved here to do photography with. And I know he's done interviews with some other people as well. At the moment, his work is a little bit dormant. It's a little bit, but that could be because of other reasons, with other things he's pursuing or doing.
Yeah.
But he had, he quite inspired me at the start because of his sort of tenacity to get the right shots. We were out there. He was the one jumping on things, crawling on things. He was the one who wanted to get there the earliest. And I find that his sort of vision how to, I love his work. It's beautiful. And one of the things that inspired me as well to do my work in ways, but also being with him on shoots, made me realize how much he passionately loves it. So he's one to, if he wants to do it and he has time to do it, I don't know. I haven't spoke to him in a while, but he's, very.
I was pretty sure I have spoken to him, and I've just double checked. Yeah, episode 85 is Tom. So,
oh, is it? Oh,
yeah,
already? Okay, gosh.
back 2 years ago. Wow.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, episode. Wow, let's have a look at it, see how Tom's doing. There's some female photographers as well.
Fantastic. I'd love to talk to more female photographers.
There's
It's very difficult getting the balance right in this, and from my perspective, it's really important to get female photographers talking about their work, and that's one of the reasons why I got you on here.
And I'm very grateful for that. There's one of my friend called Giedra, GS Nature Lens.
Okay.
She doesn't have a massive following, but she's one of those people who really stays true to what she wants to shoot. And I admire that because she's unapologetically herself and doesn't care if the engagement is not there. She stays true to what she wants to shoot.
Fantastic.
And I love that about her, and quite spiritual as well. Really nice girl. So she's one I would recommend to have, because I've met up with her before. I didn't shoot with her before, and she's from also somewhere European. I can't quite remember where it was, but also has that nice little accent that similar to what I have, but not quite the same. But
cool.
Yeah, also moved here, so a similar story to mine, I'd say, and that's how we connect.
Nice.
I'll send you the details if you want.
Fantastic. Thank you for that.
Right.
My last question is one of the most important ones that I can ask, because it's a thing that's divided not only the photography world for a long time, but also other people. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
No way you could ask me that. Okay. That's like something I would question to ask. I do like pineapple pizza.
Okay, cool.
Is that really bad of me to say? Yeah.
No. I'm ambivalent. If you've got pineapple on pizza, I'm not picking it off. I don't eat it necessarily, but
well, it's more nutritious, and I'm very much into my nutrition. And I love pineapple is so good for you. It's so nice. So it gives that sort of freshness to the cheese and it gives another dynamic layer to what the pizza
Totally.
you're eating and crunchiness. So yeah, I love it. I love it.
Thank you very much for spending some time with us, Vivian. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Where can people find your work?
So I've just started a new website, but it's still the same as what it was before. I just haven't quite finished it. So bear with me.
Sure.
So it's www.vivienfrancis.co.uk.
Mm-hmm.
And I am in the middle of adding on my Instagram and everything else to it. So it's just, you have to just bear with me, but it will be my portfolio website.
Okay.
And if anything, of course, I have to TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, people want to see more work because a lot of it is also done privately for people when they don't want it shared on social media. You can always get in touch. That can be via my website.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Vivian.
Hi, you're very welcome. I loved it.
Have you ever had an experience where you've not got things right? Leave a comment below. I'm really interested to hear how you dealt with that situation. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. You'll find me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the podcast to be seen. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.